This is G-Brands, I'm Andy Rowe, and as usual I'm joined by All Blacks legend Justin Marshall and wounded Wallaby Jeremy Paul. On the show today we are going to review the first test in Brisbane, Lions v Wallabies, then we'll look ahead to the second test in Melbourne and see what changes that the boys would make. Plus, the All Blacks fight back to sweep the series against the French 3-0 and win the Dave Gallagher Trophy. A big thanks to HSBC Australia for supporting the pod and the game we love with their everyday global account. We've got one card that lets us spend like a local no matter where the rugby takes us, home or away. JP, what did we make of the first test?
Oh, it was a mixed bag, wasn't it? Like, of emotions. Not disappointed. Like, I thought the effort was huge.
We're not here for effort, though, eh?
No, of course. Look, no, we need results. But if there's no effort, then that feeling of disappointment, which I have unfortunately felt in a couple of decades watching no Bledisloe Cup wins for over 22 years now. And but I thought the effort was excellent. They really tried hard, but obviously incredibly frustrated. A lot of mistakes, and at that level, you can't do. Like, I spoke all week about got to be like the Queensland Maroons. Can't make any mistakes. No mistakes footy. And, in the first minute of both halves, the British and Irish Lions scored points. So, it kind of sums up the whole game, doesn't it? It's really a bit frustrating. But there's a lot of room for improvement, a lot of room. And I feel that, the coming test and knowing going into this game, there was a lot of chat about potentially being underdone. Some really, really sort of schoolboy mistakes too, wasn't it? So it was frustrating, mate, frustrating.
Yeah, I would imagine if you're a Wallabies supporter that you would be frustrated. No doubt about the fact that it was a bizarre game the way that it unfolded. I certainly felt in the first half there was, particularly the first 25 minutes in general, there's a real feeling out kicking strategy-wise. The Wallabies kicked away a lot more ball than I thought they would want to kick to the Lions, because the Lions that's into their wheelhouse, the way they want to play, have a territory battle, get down to certain zones. And really, up until when Jorgensen scored, none of them are really contestable. And I thought Liner got bought in for his kicking strategy and to make it difficult to read where the Aussies were going to kick. And whether or not that unfolded the way they wanted to, I'm not sure. Look, there's this argument that maybe they had their strongest period of the game probably around about the sort of 15th minute to the 30th, where they actually looked really good, and they came home late too, getting late points, and that's probably when they actually put the boot away a little bit and just decided to carry hard. So you would probably think to yourself, well, in a test where you have to throw the kitchen sink at it, I thought they were more standoffish than I thought they would be. Now, look, the Lions' defence is always going to frustrate you, and you don't want to get caught playing too much rugby in your own half. So I understand kicking ball for territory, but I felt that wasn't an arm wrestle they wanted to get into. And as it unfolded, the scoreline could have been different had the Wallabies been a little bit more positive in the first half with ball in hand.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Marshy. Look, they did kick away a lot of possession, but they also, when they got possession, they gave it away, like set piece line out. Unfortunately, 3 or 4 line outs that we missed, just as we needed to be able to apply a bit of pressure and be able to mount pressure, and that is by holding on to the ball, particularly first phase, right? Like, you need your set piece. Alan Alatoa, fantastic effort scrummaging. I thought scrummaging, there was a big concern, right? Like, and for Alan Alatoa to come through that game, and actually the Australian scrum dominated, when you look at it statistically.
Dominated.
Well, they did statistically, because, you got to take your hands off to both sides. There weren't as many scrums, as well as the advantage rule was played really well. So we didn't see a lot of scrums. But when I say dominated, there was one penalty that the Wallabies won against, obviously, British, Alan Alatoa. So, I thought that was a big positive. Obviously, the line-out maul defence was excellent as well. That's normally a trait of the British and Irish Lions, a big maul. But, we're able to diffuse that, even with 5 players at one stage. But then in an attack, our line out maul, like I said, we lost 4 on the trot, just when we needed to mount pressure.
Yes, that's a bit disappointing, because you guys, you've got no line out more. It's quite it's a staple, a basics almost of Test rugby, right?
Well, it always comes down to set piece, mate. Look, at another restart is the kickoffs, right? You take the New Zealand France game, the All Blacks kept butchering the kickoff, and it gives the opposition the opportunity of not only territory but ball within their half. So, and the Wallabies were excellent, at kickoff too. So, really, if we look at the sort of the restarts and if they can fix that line out attack, and whether this comes through with personnel. Look, I've got some ideas with respects to the personnel, because I sort of see set piece, line out attack. And then I look at the aerial battle of what you just sort of spoke about there, Marshy. I want to get your thoughts with that I think you nailed it when you talked about they were too short, they weren't high enough, they didn't allow the chase, but also too that contest of when the Lions were kicking as well, mate. What did you think with that? They almost peppered Tom Liner when he was back there, weren't they?
Yeah, JP, it was it was a tactic that they recognised that's the way that the Wallabies like to defend. So they knew that obviously Tom Liner hasn't had a lot of rugby, and equally he's had head concussion issues. And I know that sounds bad to say that, but at the end of the day, that's reality. So you're thinking, is this guy going to be wanting to take a shitload of contact? So let's pepper him with some high ball, see how he is underneath that high ball, and equally if he does get there in time, we'll hammer him a bit and see whether or not he can handle it, because he hasn't had a lot of rugby really in recent weeks. So it was definitely a tactic. Look, no doubt Jameson Gibson Park he's probably very close to the best kicking halfback in the world at the moment. So he's always going to put you under pressure with his box kicking, which he did. It's not a strength of Jake Gordon's, to be fair, whereas it is of Nick White. So if you're going to enter into that contest, then you've got to pick certain players for it. So I thought they picked Jake Gordon simply around the fact that they were going to be more balanced, the Wallabies. But look, I certainly feel that it looked like one stage when I was watching it, I was thinking this is going to really balloon out and could be quite embarrassing for Australian rugby, because the Lions were really starting to dominate, dictate. But fair play to the Wallabies, they stuck in the fight, and they jagged that try not long before half time, around the 30-minute mark, whatever it might have been, with Jorgensen, bit of individual brilliance. And by doing that kind of, I think, gave them a little bit of belief, and they hung in there from then on in. So they could have easily let that game really get away from them, but the scoreline in the finish didn't sort of reflect the dominance the Lions had early, particularly in that first half. The other thing I would say, though, is, Maro Itoje was very positive in wanting to put points on, not by kicking goals. I know they took the first kick in the opening few minutes, but in general, he turned down a lot of threes, a lot of easy threes, going for more, which they didn't get a massive amount of change out of. So that was an interesting tactic. And in a Lions test, no bonus points up for grabs in these things.
Yeah, when it was 10-5 and Toje went for the sideline, they then got a penalty again, went for the sideline again, and that's when Tom Curry scored just before halftime. And that was crucial, wasn't it? It was excellent captaincy. He backed the momentum of the Lions. And going into that sort of 17-5, really, I think it reflected that dominance that the Lions had.
How do you feel the midfield went? You've said quite regularly throughout Super, and you are a fan of Ikitau. Him and Su'ali'i, for me, look, they featured in the game, but they didn't really get any time and space on the ball. And when you're not able to do that, when you looked at Hugh Jones and Tuipulotu, they obviously featured in that game because they got space, they got opportunities to run, they looked dangerous. Whereas the Wallabies just couldn't generate that type of flow in their game, and they just actually narrowed up and just went combative in the finish, where they got quite a bit of change out of. But when you've got two guys that are genuine X-factor players that are just not getting into the game in open space, does that worry you a little bit when you've got that talent that's really not finding the ability to feature in the game massively?
Always, mate. Look, you were always wanting to get the ball like an under sevens, right? Get it to the kid that is the fastest. Like, you just want to pass it to Joey as quickly as you can. But look, the first 30 minutes, we hardly saw, because those were the mistakes that the Wallabies were making. We couldn't mount pressure to be able to create that space on the outside.
I just think that some of it, you can't make an excuse for. You've actually got to be better than that, because there's just so much on the line, and there's this momentum that now the Lions will carry into the second test, when you've probably not been forced into making those errors. They're just your own fundamental ones, and that will sting a bit, and they're going to have a good hard look at themselves for that. I just feel they looked like a team that had only had one game, and the Lions looked like a side that, yes, they'd switched a lot of players around, but they really knew their DNA well. They knew the way they wanted to play. They looked super organised. And so people were going, right, give me an example. And I was actually watching the game with a nice glass of cold Sauvignon Blanc, actually, post the French All Blacks game in Hamilton. I raced back to my hotel and sat down and thought, this is going to be a really interesting game. Anyway, the way that it unfolded, I thought, how can I describe it to people out there? After Tizzano's try, the Lions came back and they kicked off, and then it was a deep kick, and the Wallabies looked to attack from deep, just outside their 22. So they looked to have a dig. This was happening across the board, but this is a perfect example for it, for people out there that can actually be asked to go have a look at what I'm dribbling on about. Go for it. They attempted to do a block play. And it was happening all day, and this just typified it to me, because it was exactly what had happened for the entire match. They were just doing everything too deep, and so what they weren't doing was their front runners weren't engaging defenders. Their ball carrier wasn't engaging defenders. So all the pressure just shifted off, and then when it actually got to the line, there was about 2 or 3 Lions defenders there, and they just smacked them over, and that's why there was no space. Like, when you do those block plays, decoy runners have got to run hard at the line. They've got to hold defenders so that the guy's looping around the back who's in the second man play for the pullback pass, he's real flat, and the defender's either got to go at him or hold off on him, and either way he can either penetrate or hit. So I know that's real technical and analytical, but those small little things in those test matches make a massive difference. If you're not executing them well, they don't work, and they won't give you the space that you're trying to utilise. On the opposite side, the Lions were doing them really well, engaging defenders, pull back, Finn Russell sweeping across, could have had 2 or 3 players, decoy runners, and they found heaps of space. So that's the difference in that game, that Australia just looked, and we always spoke about it, a team that just hadn't had that type of opposition and that type of intensity to make sure that their opportunities that they had, particularly in those situations, block plays, were absolutely perfect, so that you can get reward from them, because you won't get many of them, and that's what the whole game felt like to me. So they've got a lot of work to do before the second test.
It is time now for the Harvey Norman Next Gen Moment of the Week. Harvey Norman is stacked with Next Gen AI PCs from Microsoft, HP, Lenovo, Acer and Asus, all powered by Snapdragon.
Okay, this week, Harvey Norman, we are talking battery life. And you want to talk about battery life and energy and work rate and a gift that just keeps on giving without giving up at all? Tyg Burn, the back rower for the Lions, the number 6 on his back, the energy levels he showed on defence, on attack, wanting to get around the field. The effort that he put in, and the way that he complemented his other back rowers, his forward pack, including his team, it's exactly what you need out of a player, and exactly the energy levels you need out of a back rower that's prepared to go the 80. At the end of the day, I saw him trudging off the field, and I thought to myself, if you really needed it, you'd have reserve battery, you could do another 20. So Tyg Burn, he is my man. High energy, battery life like nothing else. Outstanding.
Just like the Snapdragon-powered laptops with up to 22 hours of battery life, unplugged and unstoppable, these AI PCs sip power while keeping performance sky high. For performance that lasts, head to your local Harvey Norman today. You got a laptop, JP.
The mothership, baby.
Marshy,
the
have you heard this? This is outrageous.
Mate, the mothership. I went and did a live show with Harvey Norman. Got to meet Jerry Harvey and Katie, and amazing people. And Sam, I think, one of the general managers there, I think, to do with Harvey Norman. Yes, brought out
You are the
laptops.
last person from this podcast that I would have put in front of Harvey Norman.
Are you kidding me, mate?
Person.
Are you kidding me? My God, I'm a great ambassador. So I will actually be going into my local Harvey Norman next week. They're organising. So, because you actually I'm going to get a full rundown and like get taught how to use this new laptop and the Snapdragon, AI, everything. So I will be bringing all that with us. I'll be bringing in my laptop just to show all you boys next week.
I would suggest that they'll actually be excited by that at Harvey Norman, because they'll probably have all their high-tech people there, all in a room, because they'll say Rain Man's coming in. He's actually probably going to teach us some things that we don't know. In fact, he's actually not coming in to learn from us. He's coming in to help us learn about our own Snapdragon computer, because Rain Man, nobody can teach Rain Man anything.
Rain Man was like AI before AI.
Yeah. Oh, Qantas never crashes.
Let's get back to the field.
Yep.
What are you thinking that they need to change heading into the second test?
Look, when you look across the 23 and you look at where we need our biggest improvement, I look at set piece, I look at line out. I also look at the aerial game, and then I also look at the third thing that stuck out to me was I look at the meters gained. I look at our ball carriers and were we effective of getting into space, getting to that shoulder, being able to regenerate that quick ruck ball. And when I saw Angus Bell came on, look, James Slipper, wow. You know, he's gone across 3 generations, this bloke. Like, he's played with guys like back in who started their career and born in the 70s. And then now he's playing with guys that were born in the 2000s. Like, it's like... Are you kidding me? I thought he was remarkable for a guy that's, played 150 tests. But, and you know what? If we didn't lose, wouldn't lose a spot. But I look at what Angus Bell came on and how he injected himself in terms of a ball running forward. Yes, Billy Pollard, same thing. The line out shored up. Another ball carrier.
They made a big difference, eh?
Oh, they made a huge... Because when you look at the guys that were on, right, like in terms of James Slipper, Matt Fessler, I don't think either of them ran the ball. Then you had Nick Frost, Jeremy Williams. Jeremy Williams ran the ball a bit. I think Nick Frost maybe got 1 or 2. So if you're then looking at another replacement, maybe in the second row, maybe big Will Skilton might come in. Simply because he's a big body, big ball carrier. And, has that physicality about him as well. And then obviously big Bobby Valentini, if he is fit. I thought champion Cripsy, I thought he was excellent. First debut, mate. Wow, like he was physical, he did everything right. But Rob Valentini, I think, is world class. So if in terms of a forward pack, and then you look at the back line and one person I'd probably only change, and this isn't against Jake Gordon or Nick White again. I thought Jake was very consistent. He's a great leader. But I thought when Tate came on, scored that try, he's just always a danger around the ruck. So if there was going to be any personnel changes, that's the way I would lean into it. Simply because I felt that from a line-out point of view, Billy Pollard shored that up. From an aerial battle, I thought Tate McDermott's box kicking was better, or as well as we also ran the ball a bit more. And then when we look at ball carries, I thought, from a dominance point of view in terms of that ball, that tackler and getting over the advantage line, I thought those guys really injected themselves. So
I just feel that breakdown, either side of the ball, the Wallabies weren't as accurate as the Lions. They just didn't quite get that right on the evening. was very costly for them. And I've already gone in depth to some of their block plays, strike plays. Timing was just slightly off. That happened right from the very first line out. I think they tried to launch off where Fraser McWright, the world's greatest open side, got a peel move off the back of the line out and missed his front runner. The timing was off. Like, it wasn't entirely his fault. The timing of the runner was off. Ball went to ground. They knocked it on. Do you know what I mean? The accuracy levels, kicking game, we've already mentioned that. You know, there was some good kicks, but there was probably 50, 60% that weren't that great. And so it's not about entirely shifting your focus and thinking, oh shit, our game plan is all over the shop. We need to completely change the way we're looking at it. Oh my God, our team is no good. We have to make selection issues. I just think everything that they did was just slightly off. And against a team like the Lions, who are so well drilled and so organised this far into the tour, you cannot be off. So if they can get their accuracy levels up by 40, 50%, we'll see a belter of a test match and possibly a Wallabies win.
Well, go back to those accuracy issues then, Marshy. Would you say then it was personnel because of those accuracy issues? Or would you just saying simply because they haven't played enough?
Well, it was interesting, wasn't it, JP? Because hearing Jock chat to us during the week, he basically said that he felt that they trained really well. And he said, man, they looked really slick on attack. Very accurate, so I feel there will be personnel changes anyway, but not shitloads. We won't see this sort of crap that's going on here in New Zealand where you're making 10 changes. I'm not saying that like the French and the All Blacks have both done that in that last test, and the French did it in the second test. That just dramatically changes the picture and your shape and the way everything looks. But I think 3 or 4 personnel may change for the Wallabies, but in general, that won't make a difference unless they up those accuracy levels where everybody's in sync and the combinations are working.
Do you need to go to a 6-2 split? Because when I was looking at the loose forwards in the back end of the game for you guys, I felt like Harry Wilson, who I would usually say finishes a game strongly, I felt he could have been a bit tired in that game. There was a couple of times like when he kicked the ball, that doesn't say to me that you've got a hell of a lot of juice in your legs at that point.
Look, he started to cramp up against Fiji as well, which I noticed. And look, I love that, Andy. I love that. Look, I spoke about this earlier on a pod earlier in the season where, if we did go that 6-2, and when we look at Ben Donaldson coming off the bench and what and Andrew Callaway, would they, I don't know if they would give as much as maybe having start with maybe Will Skilton and Nick Frost, have Jeremy Williams, Tom Hooper and Carlo Tizzano on the bench with our boy Jock, like having Rabs coming off because he can cover from 10 to 15 and obviously if they decide to go on halfback, whether it be Nick White, Jake Gordon or Tate McDermott on the bench. So yeah, I love it, mate. I love it. I love a 6-2 split.
Yeah, I don't mind it at all either. And it because they do have a very physical, impressive forward pack that's got competitiveness in it, the Lions. And I think if you can have, basically 6 forwards on the bench that you can replace and you go real high tempo against them and maybe take a little bit of that combativeness out of it. Don't T-bone so much, get some weak shoulders, and then have guys coming off the bench where you've got regular substitutes keeping that tempo going. It could be a good option. I do agree with you. I thought, if I'm Joe Schmidt and I looked at the way that Ben Donaldson came on and the way that the attack looked slightly different, had more of a threat about it because he is a very good ball runner when he engages the line. Probably not got the strongest kicking game out of the 3 10s that are there, but still accurate enough. I would have thought that Joe Schmidt would have been really pleased with Ben Donaldson's performance coming off the bench. It'd be interesting to see what that does selection-wise for the weekend. I've just lobbed a little grenade out there, but I enjoy doing that.
Well, let's do the Rugby's Best Exchange now. Brought to you by HSBC, Australia's everyday global account Visa debit card. Your money's off-field teammate. One account, multiple currencies, whether you're on home turf or chasing the action overseas.
I look, my HSBC player exchange goes to Max Jorgensen. Like, wow. Like, what a take, what a gather, how he landed on his feet, pirouetted, turned, ran, scored. Incredible. Look, for me, that if we can get that accurate, look, it started with the kick. The kick was bang on the money. Like, it was right height, landed, it was coming down as Jorgo got there, allowed him to be able to compete at his maximum jump. And then once he was able to compete, and we look at 7 or 8 different kicks prior to that, and Jorgo nowhere near it. So when we get it right, this is the result. Like, this is the result. Like,
yeah, totally agree with you, JP. Like, Jorgensen's work in the air was outstanding, and that's what you need. Like, you need the execution from the kick first and foremost. So Jake Gordon got it right on the money, which meant that there was a genuine contest in the air, and that's what you want anytime. Like, if you're not got a contest in the air where you've got 2 guys going up and competing for the ball, then your kicking strategy has to be that you're finding the grass, or you're finding land, or you're finding pressure for the opposition to then deal with that kick. That's what kicking is all about. It's like, otherwise you're just giving possession away. So the execution from Jake Gordon was bang on. Jorgensen's chase was perfect. And like you said, that was a genuine contest. I actually think both players had their hands on the ball.
Yes.
And so, yeah, the way they were both off their feet, competing for it, and then the way that he came down and retaining your feet when you're compromised like that. Because when you think about it as a player, you're up, you're watching the ball, you're still up. Never at any stage does your eyes go to the ground. That's just all feel and instinct of then landing. And then obviously when you're in contact, which he was with players around him, a little pirouette. And then he still had some work to do too, because he still needed to get his bloody tail to the try line with Finn Russell chasing him down. So it was an outstanding piece of individual brilliance, which at that stage the Wallabies really needed. They needed something in a half that they were struggling to get any real momentum out of, and it was a momentum changer big time.
Are you surprised we're not seeing more of Joseph Suaalii chasing down kicks like that? Because he's arguably one of the best in the world at that.
Well, I spoke about this last week. I did say, if you want to get this guy in the game, put him on the wing or put him at fullback. But I did have resistance from the person sitting on the couch next to you, Andy.
Would you put Joseph on the wing?
No,
Would you
no,
put him
no.
at fullback?
No, look, no.
How do you
no.
get him chasing kicks?
No, look, the only back I would change, the only back I would look at changing, and I'd be happy if he stuck with Jake Gordon as well, because, again, looked like majority of all players just off, like with respects to like having not played. But if kicking first, they did try with Joseph Suaalii halfway through the first half, where Tom Liner sort of gave like a chip kick. But again, it was the accuracy of the kick. The kick was poor. Didn't give him an opportunity to actually get in the air. If we're going to get Joe Suaalii into the game, right, it's like the England, the autumn test last year, like that perfect little chip over, allow him to get up in the air, give him plenty of time. And that's a way to get him in. Maybe we look at doing that. They did actually our very first line out within the British and Irish's 50-metre line. I think it was about the 19th minute mark, where we took a line out, we took it down, a little bit of a maul, and then Tom Liner kicked it across field, and it was actually a perfect kick. And Keenan, he caught it diving and knocked it on, right? Like so, but a couple of inches, a little bit to the left, Harry Potter might have been able to sort of, get onto those loose scraps. So there's definitely tactics with respects to that cross-field kick. So I think if you're going to look to get someone like Joseph Suaalii into the game, definitely early. Let's kick it early. Have a crack at it and make those decisions early.
Yeah, and dare to be brave. Like the picture that you paint, the opposition just have to adapt to. There's absolutely no reason why you can't move Jorgensen or Potter into centre and station Suaalii on the wing and just manufacture a strike move to it. You put him on the wing, you punch the middle, up with Ikitau into the midfield. The winger that's moved into centre cleans the ruck. Suaalii stays on the touchline, and you cross kick to him. Look, at the end of the day, what are the Lions going to do? They can't. They've got wingers and fullbacks that have to defend that regardless, but they've got to defend the strike play as well. So just because he's got 13 on his back doesn't mean that he can't be somewhere else on the field. It makes no difference whatsoever, and it happens across the board, where you got 15s who come in as first receivers, you've got 9s that defend on the wing. That's just part of the game, like, gee whiz, that's not as extreme as what Rassie Erasmus is doing, just to think, what, for a couple of plays, we're going to put our winger, we're going to put our centre on the wing. It's like, righto, and you guys adjust. And that we're going to go to cross kick, which then makes them vulnerable because they have to defend that thinking, Sua'ali'i, who is outstanding in the air, is on the wing. I better not give him too much space because with his leap, so all of a sudden there might be space for others as well because defensively it changes the picture in your mindset.
That's a wrap on today's Rugby's Best Exchange. Thanks to HSBC Australia and the Everyday Global Account Visa debit card. Score some wins with your money with one account and multiple currencies, so you're good to go. What did you make of the Lions, just briefly, JP? Who were your standouts?
Oh, look, the back row. Look, I thought cross 1 to 15, excellent, particularly type 5, but the back row, Tom Curry, wow, wound the clock back like to his prime, man. He was in defence. He smashed blokes in attack. He's not only scored a try, he also was the last pass for Sheenan to score his try. You know what? If it wasn't Byrne that was man of the match, it was definitely Tom Curry, and I thought Conan as well. Look, and that's what happens when you pick incumbents, right? Like they were the back row 4 years ago, and they stood up, and there was a lot of questions on the back row, and they stood up, man. They were amazing.
Marshy, let's talk about the All Blacks now. As an All Blacks fan, why do I feel so underwhelmed?
Look, I feel it's a series that it's really hard to put in a box, to be honest. It's like, well, is it in a successful box for the All Blacks? Is it in the successful box for the French? Or is it kind of in no man's land because of, the way that the French approached the series and they were, very animated about it, as we all were, that, their top players had too many minutes and had played too much big rugby, so they were ascending a depowered side. So they knew what they wanted to achieve out of this tour. I think they probably got that, to be honest. If you're Fabien Gaultier, you're very happy with what they produced in the first and third tests, which was a genuine contest which made the All Blacks push themselves to the limits to secure the test, So it goes to show that they do have good depth, that they do have the ability, should some of their key players be out through injury or unavailable for selection, that they can still massively compete on the big stage. So I think from their perspective, the tour's probably been successful, albeit they've just lost 3 test matches on the bounce to the All Blacks. It's going to affect their world ranking, which obviously affects Rugby World Cup seeding. When you start going down the ladder, then that affects what pool you go into. So it's always got gamble and consequences about it, no doubt about that. So they're going to have to live with that. From an All Blacks perspective, got to play all of their players, apart from the ones that were unavailable through injury. Got pushed in test matches where they had to find an answer to two of them, the first test and the last one. More comfortable in Wellington. I don't know. I'm a bit like you, to be honest, Andy. I don't kind of know how to rate the All Blacks' performances and where to sort of... I think probably the thing I'm really struggling with is to say, okay, this is where we're at. This is clearly where we're at, and we're good leading into the Rugby Championship now, because I'm just not quite sure, how and what our team's going to look like for that Rugby Championship and how we're going to play still, because we still did struggle and leave a lot of points out there in those test matches.
Is that what it is, though, Marshy? Because, is it our reluctance to maybe admit that we just maybe weren't that good, or we're not that good, or we didn't play as well as we thought we were? Are we kind of not just addressing it and going, were we way off the mark here?
Yeah, well, we'll always look to be positive around the All Blacks, won't we? And ultimately, we will say, look, we won 3 test matches, we tried lots of players. You know, we weren't great, but we're still good enough. When it comes to it, you know, like I think I made the comment last week, you know, that I got asked, you know, should the All Blacks be playing the Springboks tomorrow? You know, would we beat them? And I thought to myself, probably not. No, I don't think we would. And shit me, you know, people come out, they go, no, we would, and absolutely. When it's the Springboks, we will front up, we turn up, you know, we would beat them. And it's like, well, okay, but I'm basing it on evidence of what we've been seeing. So it's just like people like to feel that way about the All Blacks, that they can lift. And I don't doubt that they can lift when they will face stauncher challenges like playing Argentina in Argentina, like the Bledisloe Cup, which we will be looking to retain and put back in the cabinet because it means that much to us, like playing the world champions at home, back-to-back test matches. The All Blacks will lift for those. So there's a little bit of a combination of both in there that I don't feel that we are anywhere near. I think we're operating around the 75% mark at the moment. So there's a lot of growth in there. But I still don't doubt that we will be better when those teams come across our path. Like individuals, some of them have taken the opportunities, like Fabian Holland, like what a success story that's been. You know, man, to truck out 3 test matches on the bounce, 80 minutes, you know, make your test debut and then just be the rock of the tight 5 and the one consistency, and just unfaltering at line-out reception, work rate. You know, that's been a real find for the series, no doubt about it. You know, like you mentioned, Artie at 7, he just got forced to have to play number 8. He looked a little out of sorts in the first half, Artie, because, again, he was supposed to start at 7. Last-minute warm-up injury to Jacobson meant he had to shift the 8. And then the mix got a little bit messed up, and I thought Artie was a little off because of that in the first half, and then he just became Artie in the second half and grabbed the game by the scruff of the neck, and that's what he can do. But I think for me, his jersey is 7. You know, Mackenzie got to go, Ratama got to start, Leonard Brown got to start at centre. Probably just the concerning thing is not a lot of answers in certain jerseys. They'll get Larkai and Satiti coming back into that loose forward mix, and I know they're very keen on Larkai, so that'll be interesting. And to see Satiti fit again, true out-and-out number 8 will be interesting when he can get back out there and see what a loose forward trio looks like with those two guys being put into it. Nobody's really, apart from Will Jordan, but man, we could put that guy anywhere at the moment, grab the wing spots by the scruff of the neck. You know, Sevu was industrious. Caleb Clark hasn't had a go because of injury, and he's going to be out for a while by the sound of it. They tried Narawa. You know, like it's Ioane got injured. Is he a winger, or are they going to get him back in centre? So there's still a lot, you know, is Proctor the guy at centre? There's still a lot of questions out there, and not a lot of answers that have come out this series against a depowered French team. And that's a little worrying, don't you think? Like, I'm like, we should have got a lot of answers. We should be firing by now, going to Argentina, looking shit hot, knowing what certain positions and guys that are going to be in jerseys are looking like, but I don't feel that we're there yet.
Just finally, Marshy, Ruben Love started at fullback on the weekend. What did you make of his performance?
I thought it was a really good performance. You know, he did everything that a fullback should do within the game. You know, he was good under the high ball in general, competitive across the field, kicking strategy was pretty good, tackled well when he needed to. He looked really dangerous with ball in hand, really exploded into contact quite a few times and very nearly got away. You know, they are only just hanging on to him. I thought he was incredibly decisive in everything that he did, which is what you want from your fullback. Like, worst thing that you can have in your backfield is a hesitant player, because it makes everybody else sort of go, well, what's going on? You know, the fact that he just made his mind up and decided, I'm going to run, I'm going to kick, whatever it might be. He was very positive in that manner, and that was great. So I thought a really good performance. I would have liked to have seen him get more time to switch him and Mackenzie around to have a go playing at 10, maybe gave him 20 or 30 minutes, but the game just wasn't in that place for them to do that. You know, like they really were struggling to get the game under control, which is why they had to introduce Geordie Barrett, who incidentally that's the one positive. You know, there's a lot of chat about where he was going to be at coming back from Leinster, but fuck me, he's been very close to one of our best players, you know. So bringing him on meant that they kind of had to do other things in that back line, which didn't allow Ruben Love to go to 10. But, you know, I think he'd be really pleased with the way that he played. Where he fits in the mix, though, is still an unknown.
Just finally, to finish things off, the MCG, Test 2, just quickly, predictions, how's it going to pan out? Can the Aussies square the series?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Look, do you know what? In 2001, when we lost the first test in Brisbane, and what about that statistic? 8 from 8 we'd lost, and now it's 9 from 9. So
in Brisbane.
In Brisbane, right? Like, when we lost in 2001, we were far worse than what that Wallaby performance was on the weekend. They really had to go back to the drawing board with respect to that second test in Melbourne and actually won that game in a very similar scoreline. So don't think we'll win by 8 points, but I feel we will win. Look, if we can just eliminate a few of those mistakes, well, not a few, all those mistakes, Queensland Maroons, Queenslander, like, no mistakes for 70 minutes to 75 minutes and be able to mount some pressure, maybe a couple of personnel changes. No, we can definitely win this.
I don't doubt that the Wallabies can win the test match. It's just about whether or not they're prepared to go to the well to do it. I'd give my left nut to be in that changing room, to be perfectly honest, because it's such an easy conversation to have when you're in that 23 and that 15 that gets to run out there. It's like, this is a Lions series, probably never ever experienced playing one ever again, and many of them know that, and the series is on the line. As a Wallaby, you've got to go out there and you've got to do everything at absolutely ruthlessness, at all cost to win, at all cost. And you've got to be prepared to go further and deeper into a rugby game than you ever have, because you're up against a good side. They know they're a good side, and unless you're prepared to go to that extremity, then you're not going to win. So they've got to find something within them as a 23 that goes out there, that galvanises and goes at this like they've gone at nothing else ever before, because that's what it's going to require to keep the series alive. Otherwise, the series is gone. You can never get it back. It's done. So it's all on in Melbourne. Has to be. Donkey Kong.
Powerful finish, Marshy. Thanks very much for joining us, lads. And thank you very much for joining us. There are still tickets to the live show in Sydney on July 31st. Head to Mosh Ticks and search The Good, The Bad, The Rugby live show. We'll put the link in the description box for this podcast as well. Enjoy your ruggers this weekend, and we'll see you next week.